Hello, I am Ryan Yellies, and I welcome you here today. Let's just take a moment and have a territorial acknowledgement that we acknowledge and thank the Algonquian people, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations communities, for allowing us to serve the greater Victoria community. We give thanks to the ancestors, spiritual ones, hereditary elders, and matriarchs, creatures big and small, for looking after this beautiful land. I am a student nearing completion of my Master's of Counseling program through City University, Victoria, and I'm happy to present several aspects of my capstone project containing resources and knowledge related to disability justice. You may have noticed that I chose to write or display the word disability with brackets around the first three letters in the title of the presentation. This is intentional as I regard myself as able, and my goals include flipping the narrative to focus on continuums of a person's ability. Alternately, at some point in our lives, we will directly or indirectly encounter or experience disability and or illness, whether as an infant, child, or an adult. Yellow Lease 2022, page 20. To better understand the concept or idea of disability, we need to locate and provide definitions that reflect the mirror of our existence, because gazing at our reflections reminds us of our mortality, and eventual disablement. The recognition that we as humans all encounter states of vulnerability from birth onwards, that even our existence is predestined to go extinct, creates a state of dissonance. With this awareness that at any point in our lives we may become or acquire an illness and or disability, we can shift our thinking that reflects a more inclusive definition of disability. As well, according to Ingham, a clinical psychologist who lives with a spinal cord injury, indicates that disability is the result of a society that supports ableism. Consequently, we do not recognize the degree of discrimination and negativity directed towards this population, partially due to our deeply ingrained attitudes. Ingham, 2018. Further, the social model of disability states that it is our social and physical environments that create disabilities, rather than persons born with or acquire a health condition. The challenge for post-secondary institutions, educators, and practicing clinical counselors then is to regard the person from their lived experience and support those individuals' needs while recognizing the concept of disability is a socially constructed hierarchy of power. For me, in my clinical counseling practice, there is no hierarchy of power, but rather an alignment co-joining between the body, mind. By holding this alignment of body-mind, the two share a symbiotic relationship that moves beyond the medical and psychological models of illness and disease. When I apply my holistic and humanistic perspectives to my lived experience, I can engage in seeing the person rather than their diagnosis. When I speak to the concepts related to disability justice, I am embracing what Abolition and Disability Justice Coalition advocates describe as a framework for the liberation that seeks to end ableism in connection with ending all other forms of oppression. ADJC 2021, paragraph 6. Disability justice then focuses on critically examining current disability studies, research, and movements dedicated to improving the lives of people with diverse lived experiences, and more specifically, those who have health conditions and or disabilities. According to Byrne et al., in their performance project Since Invalid, based out of City University, New York, they have developed 10 core principles associated with disability justice, including intersectionality, recognizing wholeness, interdependence, and collective access. For me, these 4 principles resonate in their awareness that we all have multiple identities that engage in actions of privilege or oppression. Various intersectionalities emerge when we acknowledge the forms of institutionality and interpersonal interactions that influence by class, gender expression, historical moments, race, relationship to colonization, etc. However, when we embrace wholeness principle 5, we value people as they are, for who they are, and understand that people have inherent worth full of life experiences. I particularly like the statement, disabled people are whole people. However, we are interdependent on each other for our existence. We cannot fully live independently despite what our society teaches us, nor are we fully dependent on each other. When we engage in Principle 8, we recognize that we all need each other to survive and thrive. Consequently, as Principle 9 suggests, we support the notion of collective access that engages in the creative, that extends far beyond what Byrne et al. Termed able mind-body normativity. Accessing needs such as receiving counseling support is not a shameful ask. We share responsibility for people's needs, that asking for something is okay. Based on 2021 statistics, approximately 30% of Canadian adults live with some form of disability or a health condition that negatively impacts their daily lives. Angus Reid Institute, 2021, page 3. And acknowledging to the World Health Organization and their 2021 report, over 1 billion people experience disabilities. And like the current federal government's initiative to develop a national disability strategy that includes an increase to healthcare access and other benefits, the growing awareness is that all of us will have a disability at some point in our lives. The tragedy is that too many people continue to be denied health services, including counseling, primarily due to perceptions of stigma and discrimination. WHO 2021. As Esther Ingham notes, the needs and experiences of individuals with physical disabilities encounter negative attitudes and stereotypes that persist in our society. That includes, for me, the counseling training environment. These negative attitudes and stereotypes towards me merely because I live with a chronic health condition means that potential therapeutic connections and supports are threatened or even neglected. Ingham 2020, 2018, Ingham 2018. A personal example, potential clients are redirected to able-bodied counselors or counselors who can meet in person, implying that my clinical vulnerable state is somehow a detriment to my abilities to provide counseling services. We acknowledge that if deeply embedded constructions of disability are not addressed and challenged in therapeutic training, there is a risk that incorrect assumptions of disability that can and do negatively affect therapeutic relationships. Ingham, 2018. Conversely, the idea that a person living with a chronic health condition and or disability could be capable of living a full life seems to escape the awareness of most able-bodied persons. In Susan Wendell's 1996 book, The Rejected Body, they address what I term the wheelchair in the room when they describe how most non-disabled people cannot wrap their minds around the possibility that someone with a disability or illness and can also work productively, have intimate relationships, and be happy. Wendell, 1996, page 4. Wendell also addresses the concept of othering, in which we separate people as objects of experience instead of regarding them as subjects of experiences, whom we might identify with. Even worse, we see them primarily as symbolic of something else, often something to be feared. To the non-disabled, people with disabilities and people with dangerous or incurable illnesses symbolize, among other things, imperfection, failure to control their body, and everyone's vulnerability to weakness, pain, and death. Wendell, 1996, page 60. Wendell refers to them as non-disabled as temporarily abled bodies. One of my early mentors in my master's journey is Dr. Jeffrey Preston, who lives with a similar form of chronic health condition to me. It's chronic, so he has some form of chronic illness similar to me, and who is a professor of disability studies and an activist who states all the ways in which everyone around me is inherently limited, whether it be intellectually or physically. Preston, 2017, page 1. He points out that society excludes those individuals living on the margins, regarding that inaccessibility is often pointed out as the primary problem and cause of exclusion for people living with disabilities. However, it is essential that we ask deeper questions involving our emotional relations of vulnerability, health, and sexuality that form an integral part of who we are, part of our identity. Preston, 2017. I particularly resonate with the statement. We are all vulnerable, and to be human is to be disabled. Preston, 2017.
I'll stop sharing for a second. As you know, in this series, we're hoping to create an opportunity to have space to reflect and to also dialogue with others. So please think of it as an invitation. And so the way that we have this moment now to think of what Ryan shared with us also has a couple of questions, and we'll do it in two stages. So first, we'll invite everyone to pause and to reflect. What does that mean for us as humans? You're welcome to think, to reflect, to journal, whatever works for you. We'll take 4 to 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll invite people to share in groups and to continue the dialogue in small groups, and then we'll come back. Brian, I know I'm the technical person and the helping person today. So is there anything you would like to add before I share the questions?
I was just wondering if you could put up the video again, just pause it at the spot it was with the questions are there.
Yes, I will. Here are the questions. Would you like to speak to the questions a little bit?
Yeah, it's just like I would like to invite everyone to like reflect on these two questions listed below. 1 second. What?
Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go.
Oh, these two questions below. For like reflect yourself for the next 4 minutes. These questions 1 and 2. Then we go to small breakout rooms for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and share to the larger group. But I really like these questions, and they really resonate with me, and it's designed to make you think and reflect on things that are a little bit differently than the world around us constructs them.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you, Ryan. So here are the two questions, and we'll take 4 minutes to, yeah, to reflect.
Christina, I'm seeing a black square in the middle of the screen. Thank you. It's gone.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing in the chat. I appreciate that. I'll start the rooms soon, so you can come together and share, what comes to mind. This is really a dialogue, and so if you're not if you want to stay in the main room, or if you want to continue to journal, that's also an option. But I'll open the rooms for you, and please enjoy the discussion. As Ryan mentioned, we'll have 20 minutes, so roughly 10 minutes for each question. Um, Enjoy the discussion, then we'll come back and share together. Mary and Megan, I just wanted to say that you're in group 5, but you don't, please feel free not to join. I saw your message in the chat. Let's share.
I would say what really got me curious again is sort of those internalized misogyny, internalized ableism, internalized, capitalism and colonial structures that, we can see out there and we can try and smash them, but they're also inside us in all sorts of deep tissue ways that we need to just keep unlearning, and they show up in such profound ways in all the systems and places. That landed in my heart again.
Well, I really appreciated the conversation we were having in our room. And as I had said to Ryan and the others, that I hadn't put together the capitalism piece with the structure of disability, but that really hit me hard. And I also shared that, we have this, I think, unsubstantiated extra value on being independent, which then, of course, feeds into the need to be capitalistic, because to be independent, you need stuff in order to survive and move and get through without help. But really, the joy in life is certainly, at very least, to be interdependent, such that I think that there's more intersectionality than not when it comes to the spectrum of supports that we require as humans. So that really struck me too, with Ryan's statement about, that the social structure of disability starts with the concept of ableism, and then in comes capitalism to really keep us tied down. So I that really was a big learning.
Ryan, I'm just kind of curious. just because you and I, we chat about all kinds of different things, but I'm just sort of curious about what you think about the movement towards the notion of interdependence.
Well, I kind of like the word of interdependence, as it kind of like counteracts the ideas of being dependent and independent. So it's kind of like we're both at the same time. So that's why the word interdependence means we're both dependent and independent on people at the same time, which that word is invented on purpose to kind of counteract and was kind of a play on words. I forget what disability activist invented that, but I forget who it was in my research, but there was a disability activist invented the word interdependence to kind of like make fun of it, kind of like that, or counter the idea. And also I forgot to mention that disability is also a cultural identity as well. And some people actually have pride in it. Like there's actually disability pride movements and all sorts of things like that.
Would anyone else want to share?
At the risk of talking too much as usual, and with apology to my group, I just really wanted to share with the whole group my experience for 12 years in a high school over on Vancouver Island, where the low incident teacher became, and it still is, my best friend in life. And she really brought me into the big learning that I had working with her students. And as I explained to the small group I was in, the concept of integration, where, you know, students with extraordinary needs are dragged into a regular mainstream classroom, and somehow this is supposed to be really good for everybody. What Mary did in her low incident classroom, and I was able to be part of it because I could get kids into her classrooms through the programming portion of my job as a counselor, is she actually set up her peer helper program so that able students actually spent time in the low incident classroom, living in their environment, learning about MinSpeak, learning about what it looks like when you have cerebral palsy and you're trying to tie a shoe. And she did simulation games with them. And she had students doing the voiceovers on the MinSpeak so that the student didn't have an electronic voice. They had a peer's voice coming forward for them. It was just magic. And as I said to the group, I still have adult friends now who are from Mary's class or from the peer group that went in there. They've been in each other's wedding parties. They went to grad together. They go to movies together. There is this authentic learning and coming together of, oh, I get it. And the students who came from mainstream into helping in that classroom, many went on to either become EAs or counselors or teachers because it changed them too. It was just, and I have yet to see that in any other high school that I've ever been in. And I've worked in a lot of schools, but I haven't seen that happen. I don't even know that Mary knows how magic it actually was. And so just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Evie.
One of the things that I shared in the small group, and I'll just quickly reiterate it into the larger group that remains, is that I've been working with Ryan for over 10 years. And the reason I came to be able to do that is that I have a daughter with Down syndrome and I'm a single parent. And as I said, every day she teaches me something. She's my sometimes the tough lesson I need to learn when I'm not ready for it, or I don't feel like I'm ready for it, but she is, she's my guide in everything. So, I've had to learn how to be brave and step out of major comfort zones in order to advocate, and to learn how to advocate, and to learn how to be a voice so that she has a voice. And then she has certainly has been developing, cultivating it very well over the last many, many years. And it continues. It's on a continuum. So it's not been easy. I will not sugarcoat anything. It's been actually, very, very challenging. But the main piece to that is that I've been able to look far beyond my very narrow, limited scope prior to her birth, and prior to her, me having to be her, or be her everything. And yeah, it's been a quite an adventure. We were in a fantastic little choir, and often one of the co-choir directors says, is choose your own adventure, so that's part of the reason I'm able to participate in this, in this venture, is because because my daughter has opened my eyes up in ways that I didn't know that I needed. Let's just put it like that. So anyway, so it's been quite something. So, and Ryan, I probably haven't said it enough, but thanks. Even in the moments when it hasn't been easy. But it's gratitude all the way for that. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll jump in and say a couple of things. A couple of the things that our group talked about and I was thinking about was that, most of the time we're trying to define who we are and how we fit in, and we function on this binary scale, and good and bad, first, second, third, and those sorts of things. And much of my experience as a student in school, the structure was looking for flaws. Okay, so the red pen, here's the flaws that you have, focus on your flaws. As I grew older and started to realize and started to be aware that you didn't have to focus on people's deficits, you could focus on their assets and just build on their assets and let assets prod out the deficits, and stop thinking about that comparative piece. And so looking for what gets brought to the situation with all of our diversity and differences actually makes the world a much more positive place. And so, but that's a mindset that I find it takes work to overcome, because of all of our personal insecurities. We compare ourselves as we grow up, when we go through adolescence, and all these changes in life and things like that. We're focusing on, I'm not good enough, whatever, all of those things. And it takes some courage to accept that I am who I am. I'm just human. I have all these flaws. And if I focus on my flaws, I'll be discouraged and depressed. If I focus on the things that I can bring to a situation, my life will be happier, and maybe I can make those around me happier too. So the belief systems and the mindsets that we use to interpret who we are in our realities shape that reality. And by being aware that historically in a Western culture, we've been brought up in a binary system, and that those structures actually start to dictate how we interpret the world. But we don't have to do that. We don't have to be in that structure. We can step outside that structure.
Thank you, Stan. Anyone else wants to jump in? No pressure at all, but I just wanted to emphasize that everyone's contribution is very welcome. Just, you know, if you're not sure whether you know, no pressure at all. You don't have to jump in, you know, please don't think of it as that. But I often feel that when we, you know, that everyone engages and brings something so special in these dialogues. So yeah, please know your contribution is welcome. Everyone is welcome.
I'll just add in, I just have to pop off in a second, but again, such an amazing, rich conversation in our group as well. One of the things we started to talk about too is that kind of goes off, I think, what you're saying a little bit, Stan, the preconceived kind of everyone's judgments of people, and how with visible disabilities, people are very immediate to judge, and kind of, again, going off what everyone is saying on how to combat that. And we also were talking a little bit about invisible disabilities and being those physical and also mentally, and how the system isn't set up for them. And so I guess looking at how we can continue to advocate for each other and everyone we work with. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit where we were talking, and just thinking about our own individual abilities and how they change based on maybe where we work or how we are viewed and what seems to be valued in each location or in each institution, and that affects what your ability seems to be. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a summary of what we're talking about.
Thank you so much, Marcy. You know, so Ryan shared the work, and you know, and what I found incredibly helpful, even in the unconference when the work was in progress, was the framework of like just thinking about you know, the lens that we're viewing the world through. And so the second part of Ryan's presentation is about the implications, especially for counseling. That was Ryan's capstone as well. But also, you know, it gives us an opportunity to think about, you know, our own practice, whoever we are, you know, however we contribute to the world as educators, as counselors, you know, as both. What does that mean for practice? And so I don't know if you want to say more, Ryan, before I continue the recording, but just wondering.
Oh, just like when I found, like when I started doing with the education and my practicum, like how ableistic the counseling field is. Like I was very shocked because we're trained to be the opposite of that, accepting, caring, kind. But when I try to receive counseling myself, like I was denied counseling over and over because they kept saying, "Oh, we're not comfortable working with disability." Luckily, I was able to find a counselor, but just goes to show, like I contacted 50 counselors and 48 of them responded that way, which I was quite shocked. But then now I kind of want to change that perception. Like I kind of fight against that. And even one of my practicum sites is even still practicing that ableistic thinking, which I quite find that quite hypocritical and quite frustrating at the same time.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, should lead, lead the way? I'm just here as a tech support, as you know. Should I start the rest of the next part of the recording?
Yes, please.
Great, everyone. Can you see the screen? Okay, great.
Because there are few to no papers published that reflect on disability counseling training, I will now refer to Ossook and Brobaker's 2020 research paper that notes how many people with disabilities are ill-served by counseling workforce lacking adequate disability training. They highlight the need for counselors, regardless of area of specialization, to offer culturally competent counseling services for persons with disabilities. A central theme in their paper focuses on the counselor's awareness and knowledge about persons with disabilities and the critical skills to work with them. They remind us for the need for disability-related counseling competencies for all counselors, regardless of their background and area of specialization. Ossook and Brobaker 2020. And particularly resonant is the need for the recognition for what they termed as disability culture, which appears to be second-class topic of multicultural courses relevant to other dimensions of cultural continue to be problematic. Although the counseling profession professes a commitment to understanding intersectionality and identities, this is not fully realized in training, and is also true in practice. Ossook and Brobaker 2020. The result is similar to what I have encountered both as a student and as a counselor in training: ableism in action. What is needed is increased advocacy, such as this presentation that provides a clear focus for educators, as each of us will at some point encounter clients with disabilities. Ossook and Brobaker 2020. When we take responsibility for our own professional development while advocating for emerging protocols and better delivery models, the counseling profession will better serve persons with disabilities. Ossook and Brobaker 2020. Luke lived with Duchenne muscular dystrophy just like me. Like me, he knew only he had a certain number of years to live his life, and he embraced those years as fully as possible. Luke taught me how to be strong in the face of adversity and to push beyond the discrimination and ableism that persist daily. He was a role model to me. I would like to play a clip from a documentary titled Bearing Witness, Luke Malachor.
Well, it sure turned out nice after this morning.
Oh, I've been completely blessed. I mean, this is amazing.
He's not a weakling in any way. His body might not respond,
Yeah, it's amazing.
but he still knows exactly what he wants and he goes for it.
Yeah. Those islands, wow. Lots of islands up around here. It's amazing. Yeah.
I've said to him on occasion, you know, Luke, now that you're an adult, do you wish that I had never had you? And he goes, never, never for a minute. He loves life, like, really. And he's not going to go passively, that's for sure.
It's a pleasure each time I get to see him and see how he's growing and to see what he's doing. And to realize that he's a young man. You know, he's out and about in the world and doing things, which is great. It's far beyond what we ever expected to see in his life.
I'm still in sort of unknown territory with my disability, and I only know a couple of people that are my age or older. So as I get older, that number decreases. So yeah, I guess it sort of feels like being a pioneer of sorts. So I'd feel kind of, looking at it more like an accomplishment, you know, and celebrating the fact that I made it this far. My hope is by the time my time comes that people will see that I didn't live as long or do as many things as others, but it was worth it. Yeah, that I've touched people's lives. So that's my hope.
Luke challenged beliefs right from the beginning, and he was bold. True to his word, Luke was the first man with DMD, or Duchenne muscular dystrophy, on Vancouver Island to fight to gain access to non-invasive ventilation and to move out of hospice to survive for 25 more years independently in the community. Luke graduated from Camosun College with a diploma in business administration, was an activist in the disability community, co-founded an online outdoor gear business, and worked as a marketing specialist for CanAssist, and also used to run the Disability Resource Center downtown. So this is the Q&A portion. You guys can ask me any question and I'll try to answer the best I can. And there's no question too shameful or awkward for me to answer. I'm very open to discuss anything or answer any questions you guys may have for me.
I have one. I've been wondering how you're going to convince people who may come for counseling full of prejudice, and what you say to convince them to leave their prejudice and behold your amazing counseling abilities.
Well, I've not been successful at that. There's been a few kind of incidences where the clients are very discriminatory, but there was no way like really to go around that. But I kind of figured a way to prevent that. Like I always tell my clients, well, sadly I have to tell them that I have a disability and I use the ventilator and I use a wheelchair, and that kind of prevents that. But you need to learn how to do that more, but it's very difficult for a person who's a little more vulnerable. I've had two not so good experiences, but majority of the clients, they're fine to work with and they're quite enjoyable, and it doesn't seem to interrupt the therapeutic relationship that much. So I don't know, probably don't know where they combat that yet, but kind of like preventive kind of strategies that I've been using working quite well. So they have decided they have prejudice and they don't want to say before the first session, then they can just leave if they don't. So I don't even need to come to the first session if they have those prejudice. I'm giving them a choice.
And what do you mean by preventative? Do you prepare them before you have a Zoom meeting so that
Yeah,
they're not surprised to see your chair?
yeah, like I'll tell them I have a disability, I use a wheelchair, mouthpiece ventilator, and it does not affect my ability to provide counseling. So far, that's worked quite well.
Good. I think that's a good method. Do you think that once you get started with your activism ventures, your name will get out there more and people will recognize you more for your abilities and then not hesitate to seek counseling with you?
Well, like doing this is what's it called, disability activism thing, and I did like a huge political activism for the disability benefit plan that they're trying to implement very soon. Like I joined a focus group, and then some of the things I said and other members that joined got like they got framed to the parliament floor by NDP, federal NDP parliament member, and he's been really pushing for it. So I was kind of cool being part of that. So like, yeah, I don't know if my name's really getting out there, but I met some very amazing people, and yeah.
I think it's getting out there. I think that you're raising awareness about a lot of things that people who may not have the time or energy to lend their voice to are noticing and appreciative of. And with time, it's just, there's going to be more and more cases where your name is spreading throughout. Positive words travel fast.
I did just get like an invitation 2 weeks ago to be a specialist for the conference for City University coming up in December, I think 3rd or 2nd, but I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of like the word of being designated specialist is quite new to me, but yeah, but people are starting to request me to do presentations or be panelists, and it's quite interesting and it's quite exciting. This is like part of my disability activism, and spreading awareness is what I've been dreaming of doing since grade 12, actually.
I'm not surprised by the request.
Ryan, do you want to talk to the idea of legacy?
Oh yeah, like well, I could probably start talking about Luke because I knew him growing up. He kind of supported me and my mom, and he was kind of like a role model, and he had like this legacy that he left behind when he died. About, I think his anniversary of his death was a week or two ago. So like he had like this legacy that he carried on of this disability activism that really encouraged me to continue that torch that he left behind for people like me. And also like Jeffrey Preston, been like been huge support for me as well. And he's disability activist. He's been on the radio talking about things that I've been sharing. But like that legacy of being mentored and carrying on their work to the next generation has really been a motivation and a dream and a real inspiration for me.
The other thing, Ryan, is that, you know what, this is so damn serious. Where's the humor? Come on, Jeffrey, talk, let's say a little bit more about Jeffrey.
Well, Jeffrey Preston's approach, like he's been on the radio, and this book, that Fantasy of Disability, he takes a satirical approach to disability and kind of making fun of the ridiculousness of things. And I had a couple of good laughs reading that. And he's got some, I think, 2 podcasts on that show called White Coat Black Art, where he talks about a very serious things about death and assistance and dying. And he's got a satirical approach to which I found that laughing reading his whole textbook when I was doing my research. And his kind of like satirical tone, I kind of took my capstone as well by putting things in quotation marks, which means sarcasm. But yeah, I love his approach. He could be a stand-up comedian. It's, yeah, and at the end of this presentation, I have a list of references, and I brought his textbook there. That's great. It's analyzes like cultural, like significant cultural movies and shows like Glee and some military movies, and yeah, his approach is so fun and cool and serious at the same time.
I'm sorry I came in late, but I just want to make sure. I didn't know what your name was, but then I just moved my the mouse. It's you're very inspiring, because I know a couple people who are disabled, but they're trying to just kind of suffering right now, trying to they need a little bit of help. So I just wanted to just share your name with them and start a conversation and start to Google you. So sorry, thank you very much.
Ryan, what do you think about the word suffering? I'm being a real brat on purpose.
Well, I kind of reject the word suffering. I'm not suffering. People just with suffering. I have a great full life. Like, I don't regret being born. Same with Luke's mother said in the video that she didn't regret life. I said that same way. I don't regret it. I don't see myself as suffering. I have a great life. Sometimes it's difficult, but they all have difficult parts in life, and I just have a disability, but I don't see myself as any different than anyone else, just a little bit different. And I think different and not being normal should be celebrated. And I also really hate the word normal too. Because what's normal? Like, seriously, like, I don't think it exists. And if we're all normal, that would be very boring. We'd be like robots then.
So the other part about the multiplicity about languages that in using, this language around suffering is that, again, it's a construct, right? So one of the things that you've been really promoting, Ryan, for the longest I've known you, is the idea that based on what we see is not always what we are. And so, the idea that we don't want to pity people and then put that idea of them struggling, right? We don't want to see people in that idea of, especially emotional suffering is really difficult because we want to fix things. We don't want them to be suffering in that emotional way. But we can do people a huge disservice by going from that idea of their emotional pain to pitying them. And we have to be really careful about that, don't we? Especially, language that we use and assumptions that we might make. So I know that's something, again, Ryan, you and I have had to navigate through quite often, on again, off again, because you have experienced some extraordinary medical challenges and experiences that kind of put you into the 9 lives category, but you're fierce in your determination to still be you. And that's, I think that's something that we have to try and remember outside of what we might see, right?
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, like, if we have an illness or health condition, that's maybe 10% of who the person is, the personality. Like, it's such a small part of who they are. Like, yes, I have a health condition, but I'm much more than that. My health condition is not my name. And I have all these abilities and strengths and things I have to offer the world and my community. Like, yeah. And I always find it interesting, this other you have a disability, you're either, well, society thinks you're either suffering or you're an inspiration or something like that. And I just saw like the BC Children's Hospital fundraiser, YouTube advertising, like little heroes. I was like, oh my gosh, why can't we just be treated as like people and not inspiration, or not suffering, or in the middle, or neither? We're just person who has a label of a health condition. We're not different or superheroes or something like that. So I've heard a lot of those statements.
I definitely agree there with the inspiring, or what was it? Suffering. There needs to be a middle ground. I was wondering if you could tell us more about how and when capitalism invented the term disability. I believe it, but I hadn't heard it.
I'm not sure. Well, it's like when the Industrial Revolution started, they started categorizing the people who go to work or not. So they invented the word dis, meaning not, and then able, so they're not able. They're not able to work and they couldn't contribute to the capitalistic system. And we still kind of use that as, and it's kind of like a hierarchy of power. Like you have less ability, you can't do anything, you're dis. That's why I put the brackets around dis to kind of like separate that to workability. But yeah, capitalism kind of invented that kind of, and I'm really anti-capitalistic too, because it puts like money value on people, and we're all affected by that in some way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it means not able to work. And then it also has us thinking that we're ranked in a hierarchy of how much we devote and give ourselves to work, which is really, what do you feel about that?
I think about a lot of things are capitalistic and societies don't realize it. Like this celebrities, we put a lot of value on them. We have this news car, we have this level of blah blah blah. Like it's all about hierarchy and power, and we're so capitalistic and thinking we don't even realize it, that we're in this system of propaganda that to be successful and happy you must be rich, or yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, we should be ranked in a hierarchy of our kindness instead.
And I think to flatten that hierarchy, Ryan, in schools, it shows up. You talked about ableism in counseling, and it definitely is alive and well in schools. I've been in schools where I didn't comply, but the mindset was that students with extraordinary differences already had case managers and the child youth care worker involved and so on. So leave those to those folks, because you've got 500 other kids to do. And it just irked me. I've had colleagues who also will say, well, I don't take those students on because they already have so many adults in their life, and they do. Oh, well. So I think in school counseling too, that there are tendencies for ableism to kind of take the time of the counselor, and somebody else will take care of those students who are less able. The other thing you talked about at the top of your conversation was to see disability as a form of multiculturalism. And I really like that. And I'm going to wrap my head around that. So like you, Kristen, I had not heard this concept of, or contextual understanding of disability and capitalism. I also hadn't given myself a chance to think about disability as a cultural cluster. So I appreciate that as well. That's going to be a frame I certainly hold and think about a lot and move forward with.
Yeah, I do find that I did find that interesting, that I found the disability is actually a cultural identity. It's not just a medical label. And there's actually huge groups of people, like just communities that people are not even aware of. Like they don't even notice it, or they're not even part of it, or yeah, a lot of people are not even part of it. Some people are not even part of this community. They don't even know kind of exist. Some people say it's an invisible culture to some people. So I find that very interesting, but there's a lot of people like me out there. So I'm not the only voice for disability justice.
one of the things that I find really has been really exciting too over the last, how many years, not that long, is that, because of medical advances and higher quality, generally higher quality of our existence, that, we are entering maybe the first generations of individuals who are living beyond their expected lifespan, right? So we have opportunities here to learn so much from people's other kinds of lived experiences that I don't think we maybe not really encountered in many, many generations, maybe even millennia. So I see this as I always like to flip the narrative so that we'd have, an opportunity to see things as what are the positive implications of having that broader, diverse scope available to us. And we have the capacity with our technology to be able to share, these kinds of broader narratives and diversities in ways that never, wouldn't have happened. Like even a few years ago, Ryan, it might have been almost impossible for you to, communicate the way that you're able to so easily with, these various devices, for example, right? And I think that's one thing that we can kind of, land in more positive area rather than just only sort of slamming, yeah, we can slam the patriarchy and slam capitalism, F capitalism, but at the same time, there's been some benefits, right? In terms of, that there has been some forward momentum, right? Which is encouraging. I'll just say it like that. It's encouraging.
I have two questions that I'm sitting with. One is, for me, the idea that it's part of this multicultural, this awareness, and that it's a cultural thing. It's a label that is creating, obstacles and really connecting human to human. That's how I see some of the multicultural pieces. So I'm just wondering, in this learning, and I think I've already shared that in the conclusion, you say one conversation at a time, but also, that it takes this ongoing learning to learn, there are so many different lived experiences out there, so how do we, what suggestions would you have for us if we consider this a lifelong learning? What are some, advice for this learning and becoming more aware? And actually shared a beautiful phrase in our smaller group around like going from this ignorant self to this, incredibly aware self. So I'm just wondering if this is the journey, what advice do you have for people for this journey?
I just acknowledge your shame and prejudices that you have towards disability. Maybe voicing to people you're comfortable around and having conversations about it, because if you just push down that shame and prejudice, it's not gonna get addressed. And have an open mind and be ready to be uncomfortable. I know being around people with some with health conditions is uncomfortable, but it's a learning opportunity, and you could have great friendships with people if you just overcome that uncomfortability and just having one conversation at a time and doing something to fight ableism instead of just going with the flow and just like fighting things, saying no, that's not right, or confronting people that are having these prejudices language and instead of just doing nothing about it.
Thanks, Ren. And then the other question is a little bit more personal, because I think that, Christine asked about the future advocacy. I think you've been a fierce advocate at City U already, and in your program, I know that you've done a lot, and you're yeah, you're fierce in your determination to still be you. I just wrote that down. And I'm just wondering, what inspires you? What motivates you? These are these structures that are in place, and there are people with different ideas and different, maybe, a stage on this journey to become more aware. So what helps you?
Well, I think when I was a little kid, it's like the discrimination and ableism the doctor was giving me as a child. I just got this weird, like, not weird, but I had this, I was 8 years old, I had a sense of, like, a rudimentary sense of justice. That this is not right, and I need to fix it, and I need to fight against it. It's been like that's my whole life. Ever since 8 years old, I knew what justice was, and I've been pursuing it ever since. Like, I want to correct the egoism and want people to see that people like me are just like the regular Joe down the road, not any different. And I've been really fighting against that. And it's really been the medical community trying to push me down. So I had like an opposite reaction of pushing back, saying, no, this needs to be addressed and changed. And I want to be a counselor to help people not struggle alone with their disabilities or their families. Because the medical community trying to push them down and saying they're just a diagnosis, which I don't agree with.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Any other questions before we move to the conclusion part? Okay. Anything else, Ryan, before I share the conclusion part?
Well, maybe I'll say, like, sometimes oppression or difficulties can make good things come out, and like all the bad things I've been through medically make me stronger who we are. I don't know, yeah, just like the oppression sometimes makes us stronger and makes us who we are.
Thank you, Ryan.
For those who may be curious about me and why I chose the Master of Counseling program and counseling career, their answer is both complex and straightforward. Okay. At age 19, I had an appointment with a neurologist who informed me that I would die at 19 from pulmonary edema, heart failure, or aspiration. I instinctively felt how the neurologist informed me about the manner of my impending death was disrespectful to me as a person. I later came to understand how the medical and psychological communities separate the body and mind individuals like me that create unnecessary suffering. By recognizing and applying biopsychosocial approaches, individuals may experience improvements in their physical health and opportunities to alleviate their mental health obstacles, leading to a strength-based outcome. Disability justice, therefore, needs to include the elements of diversity, equality, and inclusion, and can be achieved one conversation at a time. Finally, the idea that all persons, regardless of their health status, have fundamental rights to live a full and meaningful experience through fulfilling their biopsychosocial needs. Consequently, disability justice is a construct that requires thoughtful action and strength-based approaches designed to reduce or eliminate discrimination and harm. With the right types of supports, no body-mind is left behind. Instead, the individual living with disability or disabilities may contribute in a meaningful way like any other person.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
You're welcome. And if anyone's interested in those reference list or anything that maybe me or Christina could give that to you. And I also have my capstone project that you can approach me or Christina for that. I'll be happy to give up my capstone project, which goes way more in depth. I did like 68 pages long with 68 references. And some of Jeffrey Preston's in there too. But there's like one book that I recommend everybody read if they want to understand the disability world better, is the Rejected Body by Susan Windell. It's a 1996 book, but it's still very resonant. It's still very, still really relevant. Because she's an instructor of what was at UBC, Simon Fraser disability activist, and she has chronic fatigue syndrome too. And she really challenges beliefs. And then there's also the Luke, there's a bearing witness Luke Malfour, that 3-minute clip I shared. There's a whole like 48 minutes of his life. Like it was recorded in around 2003. And I think there's like, yeah, those are the two major ones I'd recommend reading.
Ryan, maybe we could just clarify regarding Luke's, the documentary is on the National Film Board website.
Great.
Yeah, so that's National Film Board of Canada website. So, and Dan Curtis, who was, I guess, retired from filmmaking, he was the local fellow in Victoria who created the documentary about Luke's life and really gave Luke voice, which was fantastic. So it's a pretty good one. It's a really good one.
And Ryan, who wrote The Rejected Body again?
Susan Windell. Oh,
So I just shared the link for the film, for the documentary, as well as the Routledge link for The Rejected Body. And,
sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I really love the book, The Rejected Body. Like, it really inspired me to become a disability activist. Like, in all the disability activists I asked, they'll recommend, read this book if you read this book. And they also recommended people who are naive or don't know about the disability world yet. It's an excellent eye opener, and it's quite provocative and very altering the way you look at things. Like, it shaped my whole capstone project in the way I view things now.
Good.
And Ryan, with your permission, I'll share your capstone with people. You know, you have a lot of resources there, and you know, and you used your expertise to, you know, to really provide a lot of learning. You know, you were talking about The Rejected Body, and I was thinking, oh, well, actually your capstone is as, you know, as powerful as a learning resource. So just wanted to share that.
And this conversation doesn't end here. We all have our part to play in reading some of the research that Christine will email out some of the references. Like, we can read those and educate ourselves more. Like, it doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. There's always something to learn. And education is the best way to change things. And having conversations, one conversation at a time, how things change.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I just wanted to say on behalf of our community, and then everyone else will likely echo the same thing. I just wanted to, you know, to say how much I appreciate you taking the time, you know, to do your research and then to come and share it with us, and to, you know, to advocate in all of these different spaces. I'm sure you're making an impact in the different spaces you're joining, and it's really appreciated.
I think I would also like to say that this recording, Christina can probably give it to you guys. You can give it to anybody who you think might be interested or even use in your classes or colleagues, I don't mind. And same with my capstone project. Like both of these, I want to educate as many people as possible.
I'm not sure if this is the space, but we're just going to throw it out. Ryan, we're looking for publication, aren't we?
Yes, probably after my master's project, I'm going to get a publicated Canadian, the Canadian Journal of Disability Studies.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to publishing.
Yeah,
in
I'm
that.
encouraging Ryan to go beyond that, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that's my next plan is to get publication in some journals or go from there and have some more conversations with experts across the field, hopefully.
Ryan, I'm going to say thank you and goodbye. This was really very much worthwhile. So thank you. Thank you, Christina. Thanks to each of you. Sorry, I have to leave.
Lots of thank you messages in the chat. Thank you for joining, and yeah, thank you. It's wonderful to learn together.
Thank you everyone for joining who could take their time today to join. It was very much appreciated. You guys showed up and wanted to learn with me. That was quite nice to see.
Great to see you again, Ryan.
You
Thanks.
too.
Thanks. And great to